Rivers of blood, desperate knights are fighting to the last, but soon they still lose their hope and one of the wounded says that they will all die. But the healer does not agree with this and suggests leaving this matter to the hunters. However, the girl suggests that the young man flee from the battlefield. Because their situation is hopeless, she persuades him to escape, because if the world loses an S-rank healer, humanity will suffer great losses. After listening carefully to the patient, the guy realized that she wanted to convey to him, so he gets up and says that he will go. However, why is he going the wrong way? Because the guy promised to leave the battle. But the man taking the sword in his hands calms the girl with words that he will not die just like that, and will not let her die too. After that, he advises the woman to rest, and he will return soon. The desperate hunter ran to the face of danger. The comrades recognize John Hyson in the approaching man. But what is he doing here? It's dangerous. But despite this, the boy rushes into the face of danger and flies at a horde of monsters with only one sword in his hands. Soon, everyone present was amazed to the core. How is this possible? Isn't this guy an ordinary healer? In the 23rd year, the world has changed a lot. Superhumans, demigods and messiahs have appeared in it. No one could determine exactly what they were, but one thing was clear, they had gaming abilities. These heroes went to the dungeons and soon they began to be called hunters. While the other world was called as a dungeon, hunters made their living by raiding dungeons, and creatures from another dimension made them rich, but at the same time changed everything a lot. Immediately after that, catastrophic monsters appeared. They poured out of the gates that appeared, connecting the dungeons with the earth. Those who had no strength died helplessly. This was the end of the world. At least that's what everyone thought. Until the hunters appeared, their goal was not to save citizens, but to hunt monsters. However, their influence was enough to become the heroes of this new world. But the guy was not particularly interested in these main characters in the new world, because he is terminally ill and can die at any moment. While riding on the bus, the guy got a call from his sister, and she is interested in whether he visited the doctor? And she also warns her brother that she is working overtime today, and he may not wait for her. She also wonders what the doctor said there. But without thinking for long, the kid replies that it's nothing special. In fact, all this is far from the case. It was difficult for the doctor to explain to the boy what was wrong with him. But one thing is clear, that they had never encountered this disease before, and it can be assumed that his body was poisoned by an unknown poison. To be honest, it's generally a miracle that he is still alive. However, the guy does not take the words of the specialist seriously, and even smiles in response to what he has heard. But the doctor only has to bring him his apologies. He is very sorry. The guy continues his journey by bus and cannot accept that he lied to his sister, when suddenly all the passengers in the transport rang the phones, and at the same moment panic began, because people received a notification that there was an explosion of double gates and now citizens should immediately evacuate. But after reading the message carefully, the guy realized that the explosion of the gate occurred right in this area. As soon as the boy took his eyes off the phone, he immediately saw a huge monster in front of him in person. The monster attacked the highway from the outside, and breaking through the glass, the first victim appeared on the bus. The hooded boy was not affected by this sudden attack, but a man among them died. At the same time, real chaos began in the vehicle. Many ran away from there in the sweat of their brow, and some mourned the dead. At this time, the girl puts the documents in order. Her name is Songwasi and she is the sister of the main character. During the lunch break, she sat down to drink coffee with a colleague and they touch on the topic of love relationships, namely, her friend explains that while the girl is in the prime of life, they should live life to the fullest, but instead she spends her time at work to pay her brother's hospital bills. But it's not at all difficult for a black-haired woman. She is ready to do anything, because he is her only family member. An adult woman was surprised by such a sincere relationship between relatives. But that's how it should be. She complains that her children personally are not friends with each other at all. At this moment the black-haired woman, who has not heard her interlocutor for several minutes, drops the mug and sees the terrifying news on TV, which says that there was an explosion of the gate in their area, which means that her dear brother danger threatens. At this time, there were many more victims, and the guy himself is in mortal danger. He was captured by a monster. He understands that he was doomed from the very beginning, but the only thing the suicide bomber regrets is that he did not have time to repay her for everything she did for him. And with the thoughts that he can't just sit and wait for his death, he takes a sharp fragment and calls the fucking toad to him. This is his last gift for his sister, because he will die a hero. At this moment, the creepy monster, paying attention to his victim, hangs the helpless boy by the leg and is going to eat fresh meat. But this option did not suit the boy very much, and he pierced the red eye of the monster, hoping that he could inflict at least some damage to the creature. However, after a moment, the black-haired boy did not realize what had happened and wondered if his attack had worked. When he opened his eyes, he saw that he was already half-eaten, and the only thing he did was to anger this creature. The monster's tongue wrapped around the boy and he could not even move, but he dies with a smile and the hope that the Hunters Association will compensate his sister for this case. At this moment he was eaten. Well, that was the end of his life, but maybe it's even for the best, because sooner or later he would have died from an unknown poison and would have lived every day like hell, but now he is free. However, he is sorry that he will have to leave his beloved sister. She was always kind to him, even when his parents left them. The girl did not stop taking care of him. With these thoughts, he realized that he did not want to die, and at that moment his heart beat faster than before. The one-eyed monster had a stroke and a second later he was torn apart. Only spare parts remained of the demon, and in his place was a bloody guy. Soon a group of hunters arrived at the scene of the incident. A sudden catastrophe caused significant destruction. The head of Gugong allocated a special purpose detachment in order to take control of a dangerous situation. All forces were directed at protecting the population from monsters. In the news, hunters were praised because people are sure that they can be relied on, and at a dangerous moment they will save the lives of civilians. But in fact, everything was different. At this moment, the main character's sister ran away from work and went in search of her youngest. With tears in her eyes, she ran along the bloody alley. The head of the guild expressed his condolences to the injured citizens and their families, and also made an official apology. Especially he is guilty to those who were not lucky enough to be in the affected area. Also, with a smile on his face, he announces that their group is making great efforts to solve this problem as soon as possible, and all this is done for the benefit of the Glory Guild, which will always come to the rescue. Suddenly the guy wakes up. He does not fully realize what happened, because he was definitely swallowed, but for some reason he is still alive. Sitting up, the black-haired man is worried about a headache, and he hears as if he is being called by name. But most likely it's just ringing in his ears, he decides, but after a moment he recognizes his sister's voice and turns to the sound. The voice was barely distinguishable, but it undoubtedly belonged to his sister, although the guy has no idea what happened here. But one thing is clear, it's too dangerous for his little sister here. At this time, the worried girl continued to call the guy with all her might, and soon she heard some noise behind her and decided to go to the sound. Going into the alley in the hope of finding her brother there, she saw a terrifying picture, namely a crowd of monsters who were eating their last victim. The frightened girl ran as fast as she could, but the monsters chased her on her heels. She tried to run as fast as she could, but the road in front of her was destroyed and now the girl was at a dead end. But even before she dies, she hopes that her brother has reached the shelter, and everything is fine with him. At this moment, demonic brats approached the woman and attack, but their attack was unsuccessful and the toad flew away from the helpless girl. Turning around, she sees her enraged brother who curses this damn guild, because they will not get help from this famous group of hunters. Hyson shouts to his sister to keep her distance from these toads. They are unusual monsters. Monsters against an ordinary person is an unequal fight. But even so, young Hyson did not doubt his victory. Firstly, small dark toads are weak, and also their main strength is in poison, not in physical superiority. Secondly, the guy knew that he was stronger, although he did not know where this confidence came from. But Henson really felt different. He became stronger, and he was also possessed by excitement. Initially, it all started with curiosity. From the very beginning he was supposed to die from the poison of the dark toad, but instead of death, the damage on his body began to tighten by itself. At the same time he realized that the poison of these frogs did not work on him. It was enough to win, but Jong Hyson relaxed his vigilance, and was dealt a terrifying blow, after which he lost consciousness against a concrete wall. Opening his eyes, he saw everything in a fog. His face and eyes were covered with blood. Looking closer, he saw some huge monster. He was lucky that he did not die after the first blow. Soon he saw his frightened sister and called out to her, but the sister asks not to save her, but rather to run away from Hyson and finally asks him for forgiveness. After that, his precious sister was blown apart in front of his face. Someone like her who took care of her relatives so selflessly shouldn't have died like that. The guy couldn't believe what was happening. He begged her to wake up. He didn't understand why she didn't get up. Why did she choose to fight because of him? He didn't understand why. because the guy is sick anyway and will die soon. In anger, his emotions got out of control and a purple snake flew out of his body, although the guy didn't know what it was, but he didn't care. If she helps to kill all these creatures and avenge his beloved sister, then he agrees to everything. With these thoughts, he wishes the toad death and the viper makes a huge hole in the monster. An unknown person was watching all this. He was pleasantly surprised by the boy, because who knew that he would be able to summon such an interesting scarlet viper? But still, he should better restrain his strength. A hunt will begin for him if someone finds out about it, and yet the girl decides to help the young imp, because he is coping well. At this time, Heezen is carrying his injured sister, and another demon appears in front of them. They arrive. It feels like this hell is not going to end. But the kid can't let her die because of someone like him. She risked everything and her sacrifice will not be in vain. With these words, he gently lays down the girl, falls to the ground and moves away from her to deal with the monsters. However, he notices that his breathing is weakening, which means that he cannot delay and needs to deal with the monsters as quickly as possible. The wounded youngster calls the monsters to him, but suddenly his body spews blood. He is at the limit. Most likely this is a side effect due to the summoned snake. But why is this happening to him right now? Writhing in front of the monster, he asks his body to move, at least a little more, but all in vain, and then the demon begins its attack. Chan Hyson has already met his fate, but an unknown woman in a white coat appeared in front of him, who repelled the attack of a pathetic toad, and she is not happy with the fact that the young imp exchanges such a powerful ability for small fry, and also warns him that the release of such an amount of black ether will have consequences. The yellow-eyed woman's name is Carol, and before she calmly chat, she should deal with monsters. With these thoughts she apologizes to the boy and throws him to a very safe distance, after which she asks the living guy to lie down next to her sister. The black-haired imp is surprised, because this strange woman calmly threw it away with just one hand. She is clearly abnormal. At this moment, the mad woman continued to play with the little ones and hitting the monster with a smile. She did not leave a trace of him. Yes, even the earth broke apart at the seams. The wounded guy was surprised, because the woman tore the monster with a single blow, which means she is an S-class hunter no less. Hyson envies her, because even half of this power would be enough to protect a person dear to him. But Carol distracts the guy from negative thoughts and asks him not to be discouraged, because his beloved sister will definitely survive, and she promises him this. After all, the yellow-eyed one can heal. The girl really survived. Carol's words were not a joke. Even there were no scars left. He could not even think that there are combat hunters who are able to heal. It's incredible. This crazy girl saved his family, and he is very grateful to her. But the girl laughs at him. Why does the imp dramatize so much, as if he himself has one foot in the grave? Leaning towards him, she asks him to stop crying, because he will survive. After this statement, she turns around and promises to talk to him later, when she deals with the monsters. But the kid asks her to stop for one more minute and asks her a question. Will he be able to become as strong as she is? He got sick of the fact that life passes by his side. The girl smiled in response and, calling him a student, offers to look closely at his first lesson. She decides to show him the only and unique technique of her own, which she called Poison Rain. Everyone already knew that hunters were strong, but he had not yet seen anyone get rid of so many monsters with a wave of one hand. This is the level to strive for. After that, Carol turned to face Heezen again and answered his question. She guarantees him that he can also and promises to make him the greatest hunter in the world. Some time has passed and the disfigured guy tries to find out from his teacher, but she interrupts him and asks him to speak without formalities. At the same time, the guy asks the question again and asks Carol if what is happening will kill him. After that, the guy's room was filled with a hellish scream. The girl could not hold back tears of laughter, because the guy screamed like a girl. Having calmed down, she hurries to calm him down, and explains to him that she wants to stuff him with this black ether. However, the black-haired man was in a rush. What to stuff? This is the first time he hears about such crap. The girl is surprised that the youngster has not heard about it. It can be seen that life really passes by him. At the same time she brings another association and asks if he has heard about the Yadlers. The so-called Yadlers are quite famous. This class of hunters was considered top at the time, but after one incident they disappeared from sight for a long time and now people despise them and name them as enemies of humanity. The guy heard about it, and then it dawns on him, is Carol one of them? And yes, it is. Then the guy apologizes for what he said earlier, because he didn't want to offend her in any way. However, the woman calms him down, because in some ways he is right, and asks if he is not afraid to be in the room with one of the villains. But the guy is not particularly embarrassed, because he is sincerely grateful to her for the fact that the woman saved him and his sister, although to tell the truth, initially he thought she was abnormal. However, for her it is a compliment, because the Yadlers are really abnormal. At the same time the interlocutor begins to spread and she praises her own kind, because they are special. Their eccentricity becomes apparent when they fully awaken. Ordinary hunters very rarely die upon awakening, their mortality is about 1%. While the Yadlers are dying like flies while they wake up, and the reason is always the same: poison is constantly sincirate inside each Yadler, and they are getting worse day by day, and when the concentration of poison reaches a certain point, an explosion. This force explodes the host's body. At this moment the boy asks the girl to stop with her story and clarifies, is this by any chance what is happening to him now? And then she confirms his guess with a smile on her face. It turns out that all the pain he went through was a symptom of awakening. The guy didn't have time to get angry, as the yellow-eyed girl knocked the guy out of the thought process and congratulated the handsome man, because now he is a Yadler, and it couldn't be better. After that, the madwoman grabbed the guy by the hand and dragged him outside. Climbing onto the roof, she repeats again that poison is synthesized inside each such hunter inside the body, and now the question is, how do they live with this? The answer is quite simple: the poison heals them at the same time, and now she asks the imp for forgiveness, and throws a syringe with unknown contents into him. After that, he continues to explain that the healing power of the Yadlers goes beyond all bounds of reason. When they eat, sleep, and do their daily chores, the healing power is always active, and although there is no way to get rid of the poison, yet their bodies have adapted and now they neutralize the poison, turning it into black ether. After that, the black-haired man uncertainly injects the contents of the syringe into himself. Carol explains that it was a gift for the student, and now it's time to start training. She thought for a long time about what Heezen was missing and decided to start with mobility, although he also lacks confidence, but she leaves that for later. Soon she explains that the injection contained her own black ether, and now it's time to start training. She suggests making a small take-a position as if he wants to push off, and then. At this point, Heezen interrupts the teacher and asks the question, didn't she say that poison rain is her one and only skill? Time stopped, and after a minute's pause, the girl flew away, thereby avoiding the answer. The guy was amazed, because this woman is amazing, in the sense that she has very cool skills, but she is rushing like a tank. An hour later, Carol continued to jump around the city back and forth, and the black-haired one only looked sad, because how could he also without any physical training? At this moment, a yellow-eyed girl appears in front of him and asks why the student is depressed. At the same time the guy declares that it's easy for her, because she is strong and will never understand what he is. All his life he has heard only insults in his direction, namely a freak, a geek, a moron and all that, although he understands that it sounds like an excuse, but he is corny scared. At the same time, the woman admits that she was wrong. Apparently this style of training really does not suit the boy. She should have taken this into account. Now, from this moment on, he should go through hellish training. She takes him by the scruff of the neck and explains that the most important thing in this is his emotions, after which she advises him to concentrate on the very tips of his toes, and then all his emotions should be directed there. But the guy again interrupts Carol and says that this is too much, but she does not notice it, and at this time praises the blue sky. The weather is really beautiful. And also today is a great day to be born again.